Well, it's a good old-fashioned showdown here at TFL Off-Road today.
This is the head-to-head that never gets old. It's the full-size Bronco versus a Wrangler Rubicon.
That's right, and in this video, we're gonna put these two on a really difficult off-road trail. We're gonna get some pretty serious scrapage on the other side of these things and find out what is what. Come on, forward.
It might be time.
Yep, over here, stuck on back here.
The Wrangler that I've brought is the new Rubicon X, and this gets you all of the fixins like body color matched everything on the body, as well as power adjustable leather seats. And this particular model is a 4xe, so we've got the hybrid with a 2-liter, but today we're not going to be using that so much as lockers and sway bar disconnects on the trail. Unfortunately, this Wrangler does not have the Extreme Recon package, so I've got about a 33-inch BFG KO2, also not a KO3, instead of a 35 like what Tommy's got. So I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage there.
So this Bronco is the Everglades trim, and what that means is you've got all the off-road goodies just like that Wrangler. So you've got the locking front and rear diff, this version's got the winch and the factory snorkel, which is all very cool. The Everglades version does not have a sway bar disconnect like that Wrangler, which is definitely going to be a bummer out on the trail today, but it does have a larger tire than that Jeep. So this is running a 35-inch tall tire, which is great. But a couple of interesting things comparing the Ford to the Jeep just side by side. Look how much lower the rear control arm mounts are compared to the Wrangler. Pretty interesting. Kase, the trail we're running today is called T33 Plane Crash. Walk me through the description, dude.
So according to Onyx Off-Road that we use every time we go off-road, this is T33 Crash Site, that's the name of the trail, and it says this trail takes you to plane wreckage and will challenge the most experienced of drivers. It will also test your rig's clearance and articulation. There are a few spots you can pull over to let others pass, and on the difficulty rating, it says difficult, large embedded boulders mixed with loose rock, minimum 35-inch tires, which I don't have, short wheelbase with a rear locker, challenging, tight maneuvering through trees. It's a 7 out of 10 on Onyx Off-Road.
Now this first little obstacle here, kind of like a little mini gatekeeper, I'm already totally flexed out in this Bronco. Traction control is trying to figure out what to do, but we're just bouncing around. So I'm gonna go right into the rock crawl mode. We're gonna lock up that rear end, then we should walk through it.
Now, one thing that Bronco does really well is the locker engagement. It's always super quick to kick them on, and that's really nice when you're on a trail and you just need it to work.
And I can click on front and mirror lockers independently. Unlike that Jeep, they're tied together. You gotta do rear and then you gotta do front, and you can't do just front.
Yeah, but I've got the sway bar disconnect, and I bet that winch sticking out on the front of your Bronco is gonna run into a rock at some point today. Tommy, did you see how nicely tucked the winch is in this Jeep? It's beautiful.
Yeah, but you can't get to the winch line. And as our recovery friends would say, being able to access the winch line is pretty important.
You hear that, Tommy? The lack of my combustion engine running? It's pretty cool. I'm doing this on electricity.
Kase, literally all I hear is a fan. It's only fan. Oh, and I couldn't hear the engine because you're on your skid plate already.
Did you notice how not only did I not need to use a locker there, but I also cruised up it with no combustion? Was that the same line you did?
More or less the same line. Those solid axles are very impressive.
The Bronco with the sway bar disconnect articulates really well also, but not having it on that Everglades is a bit of a downer. Yeah, the Jeep doing really well, super smooth and controlled here on the trail. These are where these vehicles feel at home. It's always impressive.
Is your favorite camping spot sold out ahead of the 4th of July? Well, Onyx Off-Road can help you with this really cool feature. With the new dispersed camping layer, Onyx Off-Road will help you find the best dispersed camping spots in national forests across the US. Just turn on the layer to find motorized trails with legal free camping highlighted in yellow, and then tap any camp to see specific details. Try the dispersed camping feature over at Onyx Off-Road and unlock a whole new realm of possibilities for your camping adventures this 4th of July and for the rest of the summer. The first set of rocks are done, but now we've got these stair steps. Let's see how the two compare. Now this next test is going to be approach angle and breakover angle, as well as some traction aid. So I've got that rear locker on in the Bronco. No issues with approach. What about the breakover here? I'm gonna 2-foot a little bit, get some more of that control you get by holding the brake and the gas at the same time. And look at that. Just a little bit of work there to grab some grip on that rock, and we were able to make it up that without too much drama. Now, I am aired down to about 19 PSI, as is Kase in that Jeep, and certainly that's given us some more grip on these rocks, which is exactly what we need today.
Tommy, was that your rear locker still kicked on?
You got it, my dude. That was rear locker on.
I am still not locked up front or rear, just sway bar disconnected. So I'm gonna see how far along I can go before I need to kick on that rear locker. I'm also gonna see how much I can do in the fully electric driving mode. Really good angles on these Wranglers, always very impressive. I am on 33s versus his 35s, so in some areas my clearance might be a little compromised. But a lot of control in this Jeep, even before I've hooked up the lockers. This is without, and I'm pretty surprised at how well we're doing here. Just a lot of articulation from this vehicle, and I'm still a big fan of solid axles. I know they're kind of going away, a little bit of a dying breed, but how could you not like a solid axle when you're rock crawling, Tommy? See, look.
I will tell you, yeah, you didn't need the locker. The front axle, the front solid axle does look very cool.
Yeah.
Kind of doing its thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's very cool seeing that wheel travel in the front end. All right, whatever. Let's keep going.
Sounds good.
Let's talk a little bit more about this Bronco. So this Everglades comes in only one engine. I should came because they discontinued it for 2025, but this is the 2.3 liter EcoBoost 4-cylinder with 300 horsepower, 325 pound-feet of torque on premium fuel, and then it's mated to a 10-speed automatic transmission. Now the Bronco is also available with the 2.7 twin-turbo V6 and the 3-liter twin-turbo V6 in the Raptor. But this Everglades has got the base engine, and it is fine. It is all you ever need. You don't need more power. It is, even at, we're at 8,000 feet here on this Ironclad's trail, maybe 9,000 feet, totally, perfectly 100% adequate. I really, really like this powertrain. Plus it sounds pretty cool. It's got a little bit of a growl to it. I'm sure they're augmenting some of the interior sound, but it works. Unlike that Jeep, that sounds like a vacuum cleaner. Got this big rock wall we gotta make our way up in these vehicles. Now, just like Kase, I'm trying no lockers at first. And then if I need that traction, or more importantly, if I need that control, then I might go ahead and click on a locker. So already we're getting some slippage here. Let's see how this feels. Come on, Ford. Climb, baby, climb. Let's see. Kase is looking at the front end clearance on this thing. Okay, it will do it with no lockers, but I don't want to go shooting up that, so I'm going to lock it up front and rear. Look how easily that locks up. Oh, I missed it! anything more, passenger? Come on, Ford. Let's see what you got, buddy. This is a lot of weight we're dragging up these rocks here. There we go. Now, let's see, this is all about the ground clearance at the top. Oh, yeah! Sweet, dude, thank you. Woo! That was a little harder than I was expecting. We did definitely need those locking discs for that added grip. But we did get up it in the Bronco. Let's see how the Jeep does.
Once again, we're gonna see how far I can make it without having to kick on either of the lockers or the gas motor. Just low range with the front sway bar disconnected, and as much as possible, I'm gonna try and take the same line as Tommy to my memory. Really impressed with this Jeep. I think it's got a few things going for it. Tommy pointed out that control arm, which is nice because there's definitely points on this trail where you rub quite a bit, as is evidenced by Onyx Off-Road saying that you need a minimum of 35s. Another thing that I appreciate about the Wrangler are the sight lines on this vehicle. It is pretty easy to see out of the front and get a good idea of what it is that you're driving over. A lot of modern vehicles, especially premium ones, have all these different camera angles which you can select from, which is great. It does give you an indication of what you're driving through, but nothing beats actually seeing it with your eyes, because those cameras always flatten things out a little bit. Now we're getting to the challenging portion of this, and we'll see what I can do without the lockers on. And take it slow and careful.
Hey, nice.
Yeah, a little dab there, but very little difficulty whatsoever. And I'll pop the camera off so that you can see. I swear, there is no locker engaged right now. So, pretty impressive. Tommy, that was still no locker.
What the heck?
See?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're really starting to see is just kind of that wheel travel, right, is so good. And then you combine that with the brake lock differential system, which keeps the wheels spinning at the same speed in this Jeep, and it's just the four-wheel drive system unlocked works better than the Ford does.
The traction control system, to your point, on this is pretty good.
Yeah, really, really good.
I'm hoping at some point that I get to use my lockers.
I think we can find a spot. Yeah.
I think so too.
Now listen, it is very impressive that Kase is doing this with no lockers. Personally, I like to engage the locker beforehand. I just like that added control. And I also do genuinely feel that the Bronco four-wheel drive system relies pretty heavily on them, because the brake lock function that Ford uses is not as good as the Jeep's. But even still, this is kind of where the Bronco is going to start to excel on the trail, with over 11 inches of ground clearance, which is about an inch or so more than the Jeep has. We're probably going to start to need them here. The control that the Bronco gives you in low range is very, very good. Oh yeah, really, really impressive what this thing will do straight out of the box. Come on, Ford. It is a wide SUV though. I'm really trying to be careful to not pinstripe this thing. And that is an advantage on side slopes to get a lot of stability, but certainly does not feel good on some of the narrower sections where you don't have as much line choice or line opportunity as Kase has in that little Wrangler back there.
Now, let's follow where Tommy went up. This is a trail that generally you wouldn't want to take a factory fresh, unmodified vehicle up. But both the Wrangler Rubicon and any Bronco with a Sasquatch package, 35s, something along those lines, is capable enough that this trail is doable. And that's a big statement, because I'm not sure there's anything else from the factory that we at least would want to bring a factory vehicle up for reasons evidenced by that noise just now. This is a difficult trail that even a very capable Wrangler does scrape on. And this is one instance where you're seeing that I do with these 33s have in some areas a bit less clearance than Tommy does. So we're bottoming out on some portions of the rock, but the traction and the articulation here on the Wrangler is exceptional. It is really very, very impressive. Try not to run my tire over the camera that's underneath me, but I'm sure it's getting a pretty neat shot. Very nice. Yeah, so a little bit of rubbing here in the Wrangler, but it's still doing very well with just traction control.
So this is a pretty unfortunate part of the trail. We've got this boulder that's smack dab in the middle. And we got trees on either side. We got another line on that side, which is even harder. So we're gonna try to get them both up this line, but we may have to get a little creative in how we do this. All right, let's see how the Ford handles this. Now I do have ground clearance to my advantage. It's just no good way to do this obstacle though. So we're gonna try going straight over, scrape it till we make it. There's a little bit of a crunch, but I expect we're gonna hear a much larger one here in a sec. Yeah, we're caught up on the rear diff, I think. Try coming a little bit more driver side. There we go. It wasn't pretty, but we did get the Bronco over that. So now it's going to be a question on how the Wrangler does.
All right, go for it. Yeah, come on, little driver.
All right, it might be time.
Hang up, see what you're stuck on back here. Looks like, to my view, that you're just on your rear diff. Background down. Try something else. Alright, stop. Going a little more. I want to reassess this. Yeah, let's try going more passenger. That's a good idea. Let's see how close you are to that tree.
Yeah, I wish I was on 35s.
Okay, get straight now.
So I'm definitely getting some extra scrape versus the Bronco. Now start steering driver to get over that rock.
Yeah, go ahead and go driver.
So I don't want to straddle that rock.
Okay, good.
Okay, stop. Let's see how it's looking.
And I can still kick on the front locker.
Yeah, we're on the steering stabilizer. Why don't we back it up? A little more.
So we're just out of ground clearance here. I'm going to stack just a couple rocks underneath Kase's tire to try to elevate it just above that steering stabilizer so we don't smush it. Trying to keep the front end, all the steering-y bits, off that rock. All right, go for it.
This is part of why Onyx says
Perfect line, just like that.
minimum 35-inch tire.
Yep, keep it as passenger as you can. Just keep going straight on. Yep. Nice. Okay, so look, ultimately, it just comes down to ground clearance on this obstacle. Kase just doesn't have a lot of it without the Extreme Recon package. So if it was more apples to apples in this video, he had the 35s, he could probably get over this without any rock stacking, but just a couple well-placed rocks and we got him up. So we kind of grinded our way to the top of the trail here.
Yeah, I'm pretty impressed with the Jeep. Even on 33s, made it up here. It was scraping more than the Bronco, but when Onyx says you need 35s for a trail, you usually need 35s. Credit to the Jeep, it did make it up here.
Yeah, it did, and it was so agile, kind of sliding through the trees there, more so than the Bronco, I think. But the Bronco had that clearance, so we kind of were able to get over a lot of the stuff that...
Yeah, and the other thing that's starting to get on my nerves a little bit with the Jeep is modulating that brake pedal, because with that 4xe system especially, sometimes you'll be holding consistent pressure and distance on the brake pedal, and you'll be cruising at a consistent speed, and then all of a sudden it'll just stop. You gotta let up on the brake. It's a little hard to modulate.
Yeah. Now, the actual top of this trail leads to a plane crash that happened here in 1965. It's a T-33 plane crash, and 2 guys died in the plane crash, which is unfortunate. But the really cool site, so we're gonna go walk down the trail and show you the debris. So the crash site's about 1/8 of a mile from the end of the trail, and it's a pretty interesting spot here because you have like the tail section here. You've got the motor or the engine or the jet engine is further down the hill, and then there's debris kind of littered all throughout the mountainside.
Yeah, that's true, and it's very interesting to walk around and see everything that's scattered around. It's definitely a little ominous.
It is, yeah. And it's an interesting site too, because I think it's a little bit hard to get to, right? You need to be willing to put your vehicle in some harm's way. So it's relatively unmessed with, which is great to see. So don't mess with it, people. Leave it be. Don't start grabbing stuff off this plane. But we'll grab some shots, give you a little montage, and show you what's up.
We are now making our way down from T33, and let's talk about some of the pricing on these two vehicles, because that Jeep is pretty expensive as configured.
It is. These two are spec'd very differently. Our Everglades has the smaller engine, it's got the 2.3, it's got a more basic interior, so it's made to be a little bit more budget friendly while giving you some of those off-road features that you want. This Wrangler, on the other hand, with this Rubicon X package, gets you all of the luxury features, plus Jeeps these days are already expensive, so this one is around $80,000 MSRP, which is a lot.
$78,885. Now it does have cool things like the Mica top, which is awesome, right? It's got heated steering wheel and heated seats and all of the good stuff, but that's a lot of money to be scraping over some of these rocks. It is really interesting taking these two out on this trail because you really get to see some of the capability differences between them. You know, for example, I think that the Ford power delivery is better. You know, I've driven the 4xEs in the past, and like you were saying, it can be kind of herky-jerky getting that hybrid system to do what you want, whereas this Turbo 4 is very smooth. But I will say I am very, very jealous of your width through these trails. So if you look at how the Wrangler is designed, right, the body's actually very narrow, and then it's got these kind of wide fenders on it, where the Bronco is kind of wide from head to toe, and then it's got these smaller flares, and then the whole vehicle itself is just wider. So some of these trees are a little bit of a squeeze for me.
There's been a few points along this trail where I've been able to squeeze around some rocks that you had to drive over, and I would say just in general, I've been pinstriping fewer branches.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to admit it, but that Wrangler looks more thoroughbred out on this trail, right? Just that way that suspension is kind of working with the rocks versus kind of fighting the rocks like the Bronco does, and the nimbleness and the width. It just looks a little bit more in its element in this rock crawling environment.
Granted, on the way up to the trail and on the street where people are going to spend 95 to 99.9% of their time driving, the independent front suspension of the Bronco is a bit better behaved.
Yeah, and I mean, there's an argument to be made that we don't have the all-out capable Bronco, right? That would be the Badlands with the sway bar disconnect, which I think is a valid argument. But even still, this is a big, heavy, lumbering beast on this trail. And don't get me wrong, it's amazing at what you can do with the Bronco. And the locker actuation is incredible, and the clearance is amazing for a stock vehicle. So it'll do it, okay? It'll do it. It just is not, it doesn't look as sure-footed maybe as that Wrangler.
Now, Tommy, did you mention yet the price on your Bronco that you're driving?
Yeah, well, we're looking at $20,000 less. So the sticker of this Bronco is $57,000. So pretty much exactly $20,000 less than your Jeep.
And compared to a lot of the other solid, good performing 4x4s out there on the market, it is a really good deal because very similarly priced that to our 4Runner TRD Off-Road, and you could definitely argue that our 4Runner is better behaved on the street even than that Bronco is, but you get so much capability from that Bronco for that amount of money. It's pretty impressive.
It is amazing, yeah, for sure. I really think that this is the best value in the four-wheel drive world right now. And look, you also get the convertible tops, right? The doors come off just like the Wrangler there, and it's just a bigger, more spacious vehicle. So I was just complaining about the size. Well, usually I love the size because it's much more comfortable than that Jeep.
Either way you spin it though, these are two incredibly capable vehicles from the factory with a warranty, no modifications necessary. If you do decide to go crazy in the aftermarket, then you can turn them into even more impressive machines off-road. But it's hard to find anything else that stands up to these two on a trail rock crawling as we are today. So which one of these two is better? It's hard to say definitively. It definitely depends on what you're looking for and how you want to use it. But after spending today on the trail with both of these, I'm impressed by both of them.
Yeah, for sure. I know it's a bit of a cliche. The Bronco's a little bit more of a hammer, and I think the Wrangler's a little bit more of a scalpel, right? The Bronco you just have less line options with and relies more heavily on lockers to kind of brute force your way up things. Where the Wrangler you get more line choices, but then you also don't have the luxury of the same clearance that I have today. So it's a cool comparison. Well, dude, we made it back off the mountain. Trail completed, 7 out of 10 done. Which one performed better?
It's a tough call because they both did well in different areas, but I would say since the Bronco is less expensive and because that Jeep can be a little frustrating to modulate the speed on with the 4xe especially, I would actually have to give it to the Bronco.
Kase comes on the radio halfway down the mountain, was like, this brake pedal is driving me up the wall.
Yeah, it gets to be a little frustrating at times.
Look, what you're sacrificing here is, do you want to spend more time on skid plates or do you want to spend more time in the tree? The Bronco spent more time in the trees. The Jeep spent more time on the skid plates, but look, we'll have to do this test again when we get the Wrangler on 35s out here, so it's apples to apples. I still think that, you know, the Bronco probably came out on top a little bit, like you said, because of that 4xe system. But the Jeep, it's amazing where that thing will go out of the box.
The thing is, if we get it compared to a Jeep with the 35s, then we need the Bronco with the sway disconnect.
That's right. So Ford and Jeep, send us your top dog. We need a Raptor and a 392, and we'll see what's what out here.
I like that idea.
We'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching.